Princess Peach is probably one of the most recognizable gaming characters of all time, being one of the various major characters in the Mario series since the very beginning. Although despite this, she's never really a prominent character in the games themselves, pretty much being used as only the damsel in distress that Mario has to save. This is mostly due to the fact that Mario games are very simple with storytelling, so Mario trying to save Peach from the evil King Bowser is pretty much all they could do for the most part. But during the early 2000s, Nintendo has done a lot of weird and interesting creative freedom with most of their Nintendo series, especially with Mario. I mean, Luigi got his first ever starring game that wasn't a shitty educational game, and was considered a cult classic that became a big franchise to Nintendo now. Mario Kart had a really interesting shakeup with the double mechanic and Double Dash, and even Wario not only started his microgame series there, but he also started in his own 3D platformer. And among all of the really niche Mario games over the years, one of them has Princess Peach starring her very first ever major role. Not counting a niche Game & Watch that released during the 90s that I feel like people would mention in the comments if I said the very first ever Peach game. This game so happens to be called Super Princess Peach, which is a 2D platformer that released on the DS in 2005. I remember seeing this game years ago at my local Circuit City, which honestly is a store I really haven't thought about in years, and honestly, I don't think some people who are watching this will understand what a Circuit City is. It's pretty much the equivalent of, like, Best Buy. Yeah, I saw it at the store, and that was my first introduction, although I didn't really pick it up. But while I'm working on my final project for this year, I decided why not to try out this game for the very first time in the meantime. Will it be good, bad, or okay? I already played the game, so I know how I feel about it, but with everything out of the way, let's get started. So the game starts with a brand new location called the Vibe Island, where Bowser sets up a new castle on this mysterious place. Within the new location, they were able to find a weapon that they use to take over the world, called the Vibe Spectre. A magical wand that can control people's emotions. With this weapon, Bowser then sends his troop to Peach's castle, where they send the Mushroom Kingdom into a frenzy that ends up getting Mario and Luigi caught up in the trance and eventually getting captured by Bowser. However, once they got everyone in cages, Anguba actually got tranced by the wand and accidentally caused Bowser and his army in the emotional rampage as well. Meanwhile, back at the Mushroom Kingdom, Peach and Toadsworth return to a nice walk where she finds out that Bowser caused the citizens of the Mushroom Kingdom into an emotional riot. She then discovered a note where Bowser stated that he has the Mario Brothers captive. So now it's up to Peach to go to the Vibe Island to save the Mario Brothers with her trusty new talking parasol. The story is pretty simple, just like any other Mario game, but the main difference here is that the role is completely reversed, where Peach needs to save Mario from Bowser. There is more story in this game that I was surprised about, but it's really nothing that special. So every time you beat a world, you'll get a small cutscene where Perry, the talking parasol Peach uses, used to be a young boy. He ended up becoming a parasol after a mysterious wizard transformed him into one, and he was eventually sold to Toadsworth. This weirdly reminds me of both the backstories of Tippy and Rosalina, but unlike those games, this doesn't really have an interesting payoff at the end, because it's not like he gets turned back to a normal person, or have any recollection of the Vibe Island at all. Like, you could literally take out Perry's backstory and nothing really changes. Although it doesn't really bother me personally because, again, this is a Mario platformer game. And what do I do with a Mario platformer game? I play the game. So for the gameplay in Super Princess Peach, it's a side-scroller platformer where Peach explores various levels collecting coins and defeating enemies. Unlike most of the Mario platformer spin-offs like Yoshi or Wario, Peach actually wields a melee weapon through the game, which is her trusty parasol that she uses to whack enemies or pick them up. And since Peach uses the umbrella, she can also use it to slightly hover in the air for a sec, although it's not really as responsive as I thought it would be. As you explore the levels, you also get a lot of collectibles that you'll unlock minigames, but the coins is probably the main thing you'll be getting. Because unlike most other Mario games, the coins in this game are actually used as coins. As you go through the world map, you also find yourself a little shop where you can use some to buy some music, but more importantly, upgrade Peach. When you start the game, you only have 3 hearts, but you can upgrade to half a heart for each upgrade, so eventually you'll have 5 hearts at the end. And another thing you can upgrade is the Vibe Gauge, which is the main gameplay of Super Princess Peach. So on the bottom screen, it will show Peach standing there with 4 icons around her, with each giving her a unique attribute. The happy emotion has Peach doing a little wind attack, but more importantly, she can fly in the air for a brief moment. And although this does sound broken on paper, it does consume a lot of the vibe gauge, so it's best to use this one wisely. The sad emotion will have Peach cry so much that tears will pour out like a waterfall. This is pretty much used for interesting puzzles like using her tears to water plants, or in the snow levels where Peach uses her tears to make the floor very slippery because it'll froze. And also, Peach is able to run a lot faster, which is very useful for these blue donut blocks, which falls a lot faster than the regular ones. The anger emotion has Peach going up in flames that'll attack any enemy in its path, and it's very useful in various puzzles like using it to burn wood in the bridge. And lastly, the calm emotion, which allows Peach to heal herself very slowly, as long as she doesn't get hit by another enemy. All the emotion attributes that this game has can lead to very interesting level design, which I really like. The game's not really too hard per se, like it could be a bit challenging, but it's a lot more lenient on exploration than actual challenging platforming. Kind of like Yoshi's Crafted World, I feel like that game gets too much hate because it was trying to do a unique thing where it focused more on exploration than actual platforming like Woolly World, but that's a story for another day. And of course, if we're talking about exploration and platformer, we have to talk about the collectibles. Now, I did mention earlier they can unlock minigames, but also these puzzle pieces are used for a special puzzle game, but most importantly, the toads. So in every level, there's about 3 toads in each where you need to find them and rescue them from these blocks. Which honestly I really like. I've always said this before, but you can even make the simplest of platformers a lot more interesting just having collectibles like these around. Now, graphically and aesthetically, this game looks really good for the DS. The art style kind of makes me think of like an effective blend between the Mario and Yoshi aesthetic with the sprites and everything. The characters look really good in this game, and considering the fact that the game's theme is about emotions, the characters are also really expressive. I cannot get enough on how some of these enemies look in this game. Like, I've never seen a Goomba look this angry. I don't know why, but this freaking face cracks me up. And of course I need to talk about the bottom screen, where Peach is really well animated, showing each different emotion. Very well done for a DS game. The soundtrack in this game is also very solid. It has the typical upbeat tunes you expect from a 2D Mario game, and it works really well in this game. If I only had one gripe with this game, is that while I do like the toad collecting in this game, I kinda wish it was more optional because the final boss is locked behind getting all the toads. I wouldn't really mind this too much, but I learned the hard way at the last minute that yes, the toads were completely mandatory. I did complete most of the levels with all the toads, so backtracking wasn't really too painful, but I feel like this should have been something optional. Another thing too is that, even though I think the levels in this game is really well designed, I feel like sometimes these levels can lack certain directions on where to go. Because especially in the ice world, where I actually walked into circles 2 times for each level. Although I feel like that's been more of a me thing. There was also these weird submarine sections that kind of add a bit nothing. These are pretty much the token water levels in a way. But it does use the mic to shoot projectiles, so that's interesting. Does anyone even remember that the DS has a microphone? I mean, the DS, the 3DS, and even the Wii U has the damn microphone, and I'm pretty sure not a lot of people remember about that. And the final thing I could talk about in this game are probably the bosses, and honestly, these bosses are really cool, and they do a lot of interesting things that let you experiment with Peach's emotions. I especially like the first boss fight with Peter Piranha, where it has a really cool callback to Mario Sunshine, where you need to fill up Peter Piranha with Peach's tears. And it's very fascinating is that after all these years of getting beaten by Luigi, it really took a toll on King Boo. Although before getting to these boss fights, you also have to play these little mini-games that honestly came out of nowhere and feel like they were made just so we can emphasize the 2-screen mechanic of the DS. There's a minigame where you have to slingshot Peach up in the air. There's a minigame where you need to make sure none of the enemies get to Peach while she hovers down. And lastly, there's a minigame where Peach has to roll on this thing and avoid the spheres. These are simple and they could be a bit fun. I did enjoy the slingshot area. But that's not the only minigames because we also have various other ones as well. The first one, Toe Jump. It's literally an auto-roller where you have to jump using the microphone. The next one we have is Toad Tote. There's literally not that much to explain about that one. And lastly, we have Toad Shot, which is pretty much just popping Bowser balloons. Yeah, that is Super Princess Peach. In overall, it's pretty solid. It's not going to be a game that's going to blow your mind or anything. It's pretty much just a simple, nice 7 out of 10 game. It's very cute and very charming for the most part, and I did have a good time talking about it. If you're very curious on this game, then I'd say, why not give it a shot? Although it's kind of weird to think about is that this was pretty much the only game that ever starred Peach, until this year where we finally got an announcement of Princess Peach Showtime. And honestly, even though I'm not really very hype about it, I am kind of interested to see what that game has. I do like the Broadway aesthetic the game is going for, so it could be fun. But for the next video, it'll be my last one for 2023, and we're going to be talking about the world of Donkey Kong during the GameCube era. But that'll do for today, so thank you for watching and I'll see you later. Bye bye!